Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Father Roderick. Or, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is my avatar within the game of Animal Crossing. And what you're looking at is me in my virtual podcast studio. And I couldn't be more excited about this. I've been building this as part of my house, part of my home. And it has been my idea right from the get-go that I would like to kind of live in this world and work in this world. And why not recreate a studio that is, well, unlike my situation right here in the real world, but still looks like something that could be real. And so what I'm going to do today is to host my podcast, my weekly podcast, but instead of doing it with my webcam in my home here in the Netherlands, I'm going to do this within this brand new podcasting room, and I'll show you around in just a second. But since I'm streaming this also live, you may not watch this live. Maybe you're watching this as a recorded live stream. I do want to take a look at the chat room in the live stream of those of you that are participating in this stream live, so I can read your comments, which means that I have to jump in and take a look at what you guys are doing there. This is just the usual housekeeping stuff before I start my show. Also takes a little bit of time for people to arrive for this, for them to notice the stream. So I usually take a little bit of time to welcome everyone. And as soon as I know who is in the chat room, I'll be able to greet you properly, which I think is the kind thing to do. Now, this is probably the first of many shows that I'm going to do in here. And not just old podcasts. I have some other ideas that are secret right now, but you'll soon discover. I have great shows that I'm going to do in here. Now I'm here myself. So that means that I'm on my page. That is great. And I can see the chat room. How awesome. I see Lawrence. Rick is there. And Rick, by the way, congratulations on your new kitchen. That looks really, really good. Makes me really resent my own kitchen here, which is way too small. The red phone, is that the bat phone from Commissioner Gordon's office? No, it's just the only phone that I could find here in this game. And I needed a phone because sometimes I want to bring in people on my podcast, and well, you still need to visualize that in some way or another. So that's why I have a phone in this podcasting room. Let me see. We've got also Arky and Kaleko, and Yvonne is there, and Jeremy is there. It's so great to see you all. And as I mentioned before, welcome to my virtual digital podcasting room. So I'm going to record my show as if this is me. So here you see my desk, and it's got a microphone, of course. It also got a phone, so I can call. I'm not going to do interviews in this particular episode, but I could in the future if I wanted to. And then, of course, I've got the device on which I'm playing this game, which is the Nintendo Switch right there on the table. And then behind me, we've got books, because that's, of course, one of my hobbies is reading books. There's also a book segment in the show that I present. There is this bottled ship. I don't know why, it just looks nice. And then we've got the globe, because this is a global show. I've always had an international audience, so I wanted to visualize that. And then, of course, here is a corner with a board game, because that is also part of the topics that I talk about. We've got a telescope, kind of symbolizing science, and of course, we've got a huge bookshelf and a TV on the other side, because I also talk quite a bit about TV shows. So without further ado, and then, yes, of course, Lawrence has noticed that my avatar here in the game is wearing a priestly color, and I designed that myself. It's not the hardest thing to design in this game. So I'm going to sit at my desk, and I'm about to record my show. So it's going to be business as usual. The only difference is this is me podcasting within the game Animal Crossing. Here we go. welcome to a brand new episode of my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick, and this is a very special show because I'm not only recording this in the real world behind my real microphone in front of a real computer, but I'm also recording this as my avatar in the game Animal Crossing New Horizons. This show is brought to you thanks to my patrons over at patreon.com. I have a nice community, almost 200 people now. And I couldn't be more exciting. The community has been growing quite a bit over the past few weeks. And for those of you that are new to this show, this is a community that supports me with small donations every month, or some even support me with much bigger donations. And that allows me to do stuff like this. So for those of you that are just listening to this and are not watching, you won't miss anything. I mean, this is just my regular show as you are used to. But there is an extra dimension right now, and that is if you go to youtube.com/Father Roderick and you look for the video, you will see that I'm actually sitting at a nice wooden desk in a small room with nice red bricks and a carpet. There are two windows on either side of me, and on my desk is a phone, and next to me is a microphone. There are some books, there is a globe, there is a telescope, there is a television. All of this is the virtual environment in which I want to record this show. And this is the first, you could say, experiment in virtual casting. And I think it is really, really cool. You should take a look if you have some time. But things like this, for instance, getting this game, that is all financed by my patrons. So if you want to join them, go to patreon.com/Father Roderick and sign up. And then if I get new patrons every once in a while, I will name them here on the show. And maybe in the future, I could even invite some of you to join me live here on the podcast. How cool would that be? But right now, it is time to move over to our first segment, and that is always dedicated to the news.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
So it's been quite the week, and of course, if you live in North America, but also in other parts of the world, this has been a very tense week for a lot of people. After the murder of George Floyd, it seemed as if all bottled up frustration that dates back decades and decades in the United States came to an explosion, and there were protests everywhere, mostly peaceful, but as usual, when you've got these mass demonstrations, there are always people that are trying to take advantage of the situation and start plundering and everything. But the overall amplitude, or how you say that, the size of the protests has really surprised everyone. And what struck me is that it also crossed the ocean. Here in the Netherlands, there have also been protests in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, other big cities, and there were so many people participating, thousands of people, even though the police initially only expected about a couple of hundred people to show up. We had thousands of people. They had to stop the demonstrations, even though, of course, demonstrating is a right that we all have, and that is very important in our democracies. There is still this COVID situation. There is still the risk of contamination, and so in Amsterdam they had to send people home, and I think the same happened in Rotterdam at a point. But that didn't stop the protests. It continued online, and people are still talking about this. And what I thought was very impressive is that our own Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, in his weekly address, he's doing these weekly addresses during the corona crisis, he told us that this is not just an American problem. Systemic racism is also the case it also takes place in our own country, and it is something that we need to all be conscious, be aware of, conscious about, and we should try to improve our society. And make sure that the society is open and welcoming to anyone. And that he had a great speech, actually, where he said, we want to live in a country where people are judged on the basis of their merits, of what they do, the choices that they make, not what the color of their skin or their beliefs. He mentioned specifically also faith as something that sometimes can lead to discrimination. But it's not your faith that defines you. It's how you act in society that should matter, and that is the only thing that really counts. It was a very, very strong speech. Almost a shame that he only did it in Dutch, because this I think if he would have done the speech in English, it would have gone viral. I've rarely seen him speak so from the heart, and he admitted that he himself has changed, that he's become much more aware of the situation, of the suffering of those that feel discriminated in our society, by meeting people, by listening to their stories. I thought it was, a sign of great leadership in these troubled times, and I think also really helps to give people confidence that their concerns are heard, that this is something that is on the top of the agenda right now, and that this is a wake-up call for all our societies to maybe have an examination of conscience and ask ourselves, where are we maybe complicit in maintaining this situation? What can we do to improve? Even Pope Francis spoke about it in his weekly address and said that he thought the murder was horrible of George Floyd, but that he thought that the violence that he saw in the news taking place in some of the cities in the U.S. was caused him great concern. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this will take us in the next couple of weeks or months. But it seems that this reaction is bigger than I've seen for a long time, which means that there is something definitely going on. There is something that we need to listen to, both as in politics, in our society, but also in our church. We need to always defend the weak. And this morning I had an interesting small exchange on Facebook where one of my friends asked himself, and it was a genuine question, we hear the slogan Black Lives Matter all the time, but isn't that just in a certain way emphasizing the racism? Shouldn't we say all lives matter? It doesn't matter what color you are, if you're black or white or yellow or pink, all lives matter. Everyone should be accepted. It's an understand. I mean, I can see where the comment comes from. On the other hand, I compare it with the situation, and I read this somewhere online. I forgot who wrote it, but I thought it was very poignant. Someone said, it's like the parable of the lost sheep. Remember the shepherd? He's got 100 sheep, and to them, they're equally important. All lives of all his sheep matter to him. He's a shepherd. How could he not care for all his sheep? However, when one of them is threatened and is in danger, he leaves the 99 others, and he goes and finds that lost sheep and protects it and brings it back to the flock. That is the situation that we're currently in. The concern of society, valuing or emphasizing the respect that we need to have for black people, for people of whatever skin color, is not saying that we shouldn't respect other forms of life or other, people, but it is bring to the forefront that the racism based on the color of your skin, your faith, your sexual orientation, and many other things that people use sometimes to bring animosity in our society, that create division, that none of that should matter. We should always judge people on the basis of what they do, how they live their lives, whether they care, whether they love, whether they contribute or not, and not on the basis of factors that they had no say in, no influence on. Nobody has been able to choose his or her parents. Nobody has chosen beforehand where to be born or what color of the skin they had. But what we are in control of is how we act, how we treat each other. And that, I think, is what we need to continue to work on. And I think the gospel is a very, very good guiding. How would you say that? It can help us. Jesus is leading the way, also in very specific situations like this. Was there racism in the Bible? You bet. Of course, this has been with mankind since the beginning. The story is full of the Bible is full of stories of people hating each other just on the basis of who their parents are, which country they came from, and even which beliefs they had. And even Jesus has to confront these divisions that people create, and he's always the one who points to our common provenance, our common Father. That is why the prayer that he teaches his disciples begins with our Father. There is only one God, and we're all his children, no matter what we look like. And he loves us equally. So in these times of trouble, maybe the Our Father is the best prayer to pray together, so that God may help us to find each other again in this common parentage that we share. And with that, it is time to move over to the world of movies and TV shows. I'm back here at my desk, just staring into nothingness, basically. This is a very small room, and my avatar is doing exactly what I'm doing when I'm podcasting. And I just sit in a chair for an hour and talk into a microphone. What else am I going to do? If I walk away, you won't be able to hear me. So let's take a look at what's on TV here.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl and that kid sees dead people and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
Believe it or not, this room actually has a working TV, and I just switched it on. You may hear a little bit of the audio of the TV. So it's got the little voices. The voices in Animal Crossing are very funny. It's like an abbreviated form of communication. I think they actually base it on real words. They just take out random letters, and then it sounds like this, like chipmunks. So anyway, this TV is not unsimilar to the TV that we all have. It's like a flat screen TV. And of course, in these times of Corona, I'm going to switch it off because it's a little bit distracting. We're always looking for uplifting content and stuff that helps us forget about all the trouble, and especially when there's so much bad news and we're all worried. We sometimes just need a break and watch something funny. Well, one series that was on my in the top 3 of my to watch list was the new series on Netflix called Space Force, and it stars Steve Carell from The Office, as well as many other very well-known actors, and it's a bit of a parody or a pastiche of this idea that was launched, I think last year, by President Trump, who said, well, we need to have a new branch of the military called Space Force, because we need to make sure that we protect what is ours beyond the confines of the atmosphere. And they kind of riffed on that. I think that this was originally an idea of Steve Carell, and he's like, well, I think there is comedic value in that. Let's pretend that that the Space Force is already there. What would it look like? What are you going to do with military in space? What stories can we tell? And that is what this series does. So the first season was launched in bulk, so you can watch all the episodes. It's not a very long season. And it is a bit of a mixed bag. I want to give you a short review. It's funny. It's definitely funny. And how could it not be with Steve Carell? His character is a little bit like the the character that he played in The Office. In the first season, he's a bit harsh, sometimes a little bit unpredictable, a bit erratic. And it takes a while for me as a viewer to actually start to like him at first. I was like, well, I don't know. One of the big issues of The Office was that after the first season, they were on the verge of canceling the entire series because people didn't like his character. He was too harsh, too cynical, and they did, I think, a great job rewriting his character for subsequent seasons and make him much more likable, warmer, and that made him, in a certain way, more relatable. And you need a relatable main character. This series kind of does the same thing, but then within the first season, the first few episodes is like, I'm not sure if I like this guy. And then gradually, you see him struggle as well. And you see that a lot of his unlikable side is a pose, that he thinks he needs to show the world because he's a military. But he also struggles with, family issues. His daughter, his wife is in prison. Daughter is in the age where you do stupid things, and then he's worried about that. And so you see his struggle, and at the same time, he needs to lead this very dysfunctional Space Force. What makes, I think, the perfect combination here in this series, and I think if this had just been Steve Carell, I'm not sure if the series would have worked, but he plays opposite of John Malkovich, an Oscar-winning actor who plays Dr. Adrian Mallory, a very slow, very boring scientist who is extremely wordy and gets on the nerves of Steve Carell's character. I think his name is General Nerd, Naird, and of course that is often abbreviated or misspoken as General Nerd. He's just a nerd. But their chemistry is amazing from the get-go, and these characters couldn't be more different, and yet they are condemned to work together, and that makes it so funny. Just for that, I think the series is going to be probably getting a second season, and I think there is really potential in for this series to grow into something that is going to be well, I don't know, maybe something that people will enjoy for years to come. It's not yet The Office, it's not yet Parks and Recreation, but you can feel that it's getting there. It's trying to find its own tone of voice, and well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Speaking of Parks and Recreation, Ben Schwartz plays another irritating guy. He is kind of the same character that he plays in Parks and Recreation. In this series, he plays F. Tony Scarapiducci. Of course, that is a parody on the former White House director. I think he was White House Director of Communications for only a week, Anthony Scaramucci. So here we've got Tony Scarapiducci. And it is this over ADD, the type of new media guy who wants to. He's so over the top, and in a way, he kind of makes another nice addition to the cast. Every character is a bit of an exaggeration, and that makes it, I don't know, funny, and you instantly remember all the characters. So I think as much as this is pitched as being, the next big thing for Steve Carell, I think this show works because the ensemble is interesting, and there is a lot of story potential, I think, and comedic potential for all these figures. There are also a number of things that don't work. Sometimes the show is a little bit slow, and not always very funny. There are some weird time jumps. So sometimes it just shows you events at a very slow pace, and then all of a sudden, you jump forward in time. That's sometimes a bit confusing. You're like, oh, did I miss an episode? Oh, they just jumped forward in time. And there is one, warning for people who think this may be something to watch with their children. No, it is. There is a lot of swearing. That was the first thing that struck me. And it seems to be the same thing that you often see on American television, because on regular television, there is, they bleep out everything. There's no swearing whatsoever. And if they're swearing, it is censored. And then I think it's on cable, they can basically say anything they want. And then they just go over the top, and they keep swearing all the time. It feels unbalanced, unnecessary. It does not make it more funny. It just feels like lazy writing. So there's a lot of S words, F words, whatever words. And to me as a European, it feels forced and strange and artificial. And it's almost as if the writers themselves are potty-mouthed and then just finally feel free to use the same language that they would use in real life. And it just doesn't, it's not credible. I don't know people that swear all the time like that. So anyway, that would be a reason maybe to be a little bit careful to, watch this as a family. But otherwise, it's not that, there's nothing too shocking in this series. Let's see, what else is there to say? I liked some of the winks to, famous science fiction movies. Like there's definitely an episode that is playing with the whole concept of the Martian, where there's this settlement on Mars, and the only thing they eat there is potatoes. Well, here they create like a test environment on Earth that is seemingly simulating a moon base, and so the only thing they can eat there is potatoes. That is one of the best episodes. I loved it. There is also an episode featuring an ape that looks just like one of the characters of Planet of the Apes, and there are some really good moments of dialogue, or the more personal scenes of Steve Carell and his daughter, and some of the more human elements are really well acted, and it shows the versatility of an actor like Steve Carell. Of course, there are lots of funny faces as well. One of my favorite scenes in the first episode is a scene in which Steve Carell's character, so General Nerd, is under huge pressure, and he tries to relax. And his room is constantly invaded by all sorts of people. They never warn him that they are in the room, so every time he walks in and thinks he's alone, and he jumps up because someone is sitting at his desk and nobody told him. And so at one point, he's so fed up and he's so stressed that he closes his office and he says, "I gotta be alone for 5 minutes." And then I'll play a little clip of the scene. It is amazing. He has a very particular way of finding inner peace, and it involves a very familiar song.
His blood pressure is spiking.
Brad, no interruptions for 5 minutes.
So he's standing in front of a window,
Aruba, Jamaica.
eyes closed.
I wanna take you, Bermuda, Bahama, pretty mama. Bodies in the sand. Tropical drinks melting in your hand. We'll be falling in love to the rhythm of a steel drum band.
And then he just continues singing. It is, of course, we all know that song. And it just goes on and on and on. I can't play it here, of course, because of copyright issues. But it is so well played. And it is almost an instant classic. It's the whole Bermuda. Da, 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 da. I've been humming that song for a day after seeing that episode. Hilarious. And there are more iconic moments. And the series is very good at creating these unforgettable sequences. So I would say mild recommend. Beware of the foul language. And it's a series that is good, but I think it will be much better in the second season. Time for the Peculiar Bunch.
Catholics rock!
Here at the Peculiar Bunch, we're always happy to tell you everything you always wanted to know about Catholics and their faith, but you were afraid to ask.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
So, in the meantime, I sat down in front of my nice bookshelf here in Animal Crossing because we got to talk about faith, and faith is,
Man, you guys got
books.
more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
Well, faith is not books, of course. Faith is most of all something that you live, but books are a very important component in transmitting the faith and also as a resource to understand faith. And I'm not just talking about books, I'm also talking about articles. And if you follow some of these resources or channels, even if you're a priest and you've studied for 10 years, you still sometimes learn something new. And this week, I want to talk about an article that I read on the website Aletheia. I think it's Greek for truth or something like that. It's Aletheia, Aletheia. And the article is named How Incense at Mass Might Reduce Airborne Diseases. Now, I have a long-standing history with frankincense. I've been an altar boy for 11 years, from the moment that I did my first communion until I entered seminary, basically. And because I was very good at it, I was always in charge of the frankincense. And I loved it and I hated it because I was allergic to it. And especially during adoration, etc., you had to sit there in front of the sacrament with the frankincense burning, and you would inhale the smoke and it would make me nauseous and it would get into my clothes, and I just don't like any type of smoke. And at the same time, it's full of memories. Well, this article is about recent research that says that both science and the history of the church confirm the purifying ability of burning frankincense during religious services. This is super old. The frankincense, you already find that in the Old Testament. It goes back thousands of years. And it's still used in modern liturgy. We've reintroduced it in our live streams as well. The location from which I'm streaming only used frankincense at, the biggest feasts, and basically because the priest that was here before me was also allergic to it and didn't like it. So he didn't want us to use it. But for video, of course, it is very visual. So we brought it back. And it really depends on the quality. That's one of the points that this article makes. It says, frankincense needs to be dry. It needs to be, high quality. And oftentimes the cheaper frankincense, which often is what churches will buy because they think, well, it's just frankincense, right? Is mixed with other chemicals. And it's those chemicals plus moisture that can lead to the smoke becoming really thick and unhealthy. But real good quality frankincense, it not only can take away from the smell of unwashed pilgrims. That's also something that, in the Middle Ages, people didn't take a shower every morning. So it was believed that frankincense was used to kind of get rid of all the stinky smells. But it was also believed to have a preventative effect against the plague, for instance, and other infectious diseases. According to one study, it's linked here. I don't have the original study in front of me. They were testing the effectiveness of the application of frankincense to cleanse microbially contaminated air within the ambient of an investigated 17th century church. The results of the study explained that the antimicrobial properties of essential oil derived from frankincense, a compound with well-known traditional use, showed that it possesses a clear potential as a natural antimicrobial agent. The results suggest possible application of a certain fume, vapor, as occasional air purifiers in sacral ambience, apart from daily church rituals. So it could be used to purify the air. Who could have known that? I certainly didn't think that it would do that. An article on the website Healthline, I'm not sure how reputable that website is. It claims that burning myrrh and frankincense incense reduced airborne bacterial counts by 68%. Another study looked at frankincense essential oil and how it has anti-inflammation and anti-cancer effects. Now, I do remember another article that I read a couple of years ago that claimed the opposite. That said that frankincense can actually be can cause cancer and is dangerous for the lungs. So again, always be skeptical when you hear about stuff like this, especially if you read it on a Catholic website. How, is it unbiased? I didn't have time to look up all the data, but it is interesting to hear, about positive effects of frankincense. According to another research paper from the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology, burning frankincense resin, which is resin from the Boswellia plant, activates poorly understood ion channels in the brain to alleviate anxiety or depression. So it may even help to decrease depression. Interesting. However, the article says too much incense, especially when it's not pure frankincense, but mixed with other substances, can have harmful effects on the respiratory system. That's kind of what I experienced as a child, and still sometimes experience if there is too much of it. So in certain Asian countries, they use a lot of cheap incense, which can be harmful to the lungs. In my opinion, like, smoke can never be good. I don't see how it can be good. You're still inhaling particles, and that your lungs are not meant to do that, I think. Anyway, apparently, there is even some of the incense manufacturers are working on better types of frankincense that are less, dangerous or not dangerous at all. Apparently, there is even hypoallergenic incense. I need to get my hands on that, because I would definitely would like to use that. So the article says the use of incense in church buildings should be monitored, keeping in mind those who suffer from asthma and other similar respiratory problems. That is what I've often heard. People suffering from asthma cannot stand frankincense. However, we did use real frankincense, or very expensive frankincense, that I bought or got from someone who bought it in Jerusalem, and that actually smelled 100 times better than the frankincense that we have. Usually, it was much more expensive as well, but it really smelled like flowers, and apparently, according to some anecdotal evidence, it did not cause these asthmatic attacks. So who knows? Let me know if you have tips for frankincense. I definitely now am going to look a bit closer at the various types of frankincense that we have here in storage, and if we need to replenish our reserves, I'm going to go for a high quality frankincense and see if it makes a difference.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
All right, let me get a few books from my bookshelf here, because I want to talk about a series of books that I found on Amazon on the Kindle store, and it may still be on sale. I thought it was a super bargain. It is a series written for children, I think. It is, a little bit like Harry Potter. It's not for adult readers. And it's called Artemis Fowl. The book series, 8 books, were on sale and may still be on sale on the Amazon Kindle store for only, $7? Like 99 cents per book. Well, these are not small books. They're like 400, 500 pages. So again, similar to Harry Potter in size. I haven't started reading it, but the reason that I was interested is that Disney has announced that it will publish or premiere a movie based on the first book, I think, on Disney Plus this month of June. That's probably also why they put the books on sale. So I can't really give you a review of the book yet. However, I can give you a short audio preview of the Artemis Fowl movie trailer.
We want to know everything about the man you work for. A man? A This isn't about the father. This is about the son, Artemis Fowl. You've grown strong, son. And smarter than I ever imagined.
Then take me with you.
You're all I have now, Artie. There's just one very important thing I have to do.
Authorities launched a worldwide manhunt for the famous collector. He is suspected to have been behind some of the biggest robberies ever.
Dad.
Hello?
Your family has taken something of great value from us. Return it to me or I will destroy everything you love.
You weren't supposed to see this yet. Your father is in a complicated profession. For years, he has protected powerful secrets that have kept mankind safe from the dangers of another world. It's time to face your destiny.
Now look around, this is what they call greatness.
But we are not alone in this.
Mulch Diggums, just sit down and take.
I have to say, I'm going to stop it here because I'm not going to play like a 2.5 minute long clip. You can watch it for yourself. The link is in the show notes. But this looks really good. Definitely something that I understand why Disney wanted this franchise. And I'm not sure if this is just going to be one movie or if they're going to do more. Maybe they're planning on this becoming a franchise in itself. We'll see. So apparently the movie, maybe this is just because of the fact that, because of Corona, a lot of the movies were either postponed or launched directly to streaming platforms like Disney Plus. They've done that with more movies. This movie will launch, I think, it was originally scheduled to open in the U.S. theaters on May the 29th. And if I'm not mistaken, they changed that into a premiere on Disney Plus, I think next week. So keep an eye on Disney Plus if you want to see it. I'm going to read the first book, and I will let you know what I thought of it in one of my next shows. And with that, it is time for the next segment dedicated to science fiction. And I want to talk a little bit about Star Wars and, going to expand it a little bit more to the world of fantasy. Because I also want to talk about something very cool that happened within the universe of The Lord of the Rings. Maybe you've already seen it. If not, you should.
I see aliens. Little aliens from outer space.
And how are things in outer Plutonia?
How many times have I told you not to wear your space boots in the house?
Go the shape I'm in, you can donate my body to science fiction.
Get your suit on! We need you!
All right, I am talking about the Lord of the Rings cast reunion that was aired, I think, last week on YouTube. It was one of those Skype calls, and we see a lot of them. A lot of the talk shows are even doing this, to my great surprise, because they're just using very, deficient internet connections, very bad microphones, bad lighting, no makeup. It's quite surprising to see how even big shows and big showrunners seem to just be complacent with the bad quality that you get from just a regular Skype call on a crappy phone. And I was like, well, even, us podcasters, amateurs, we can make it sound okay. We have cameras that are far superior to what we see all these big people use. So the same was happening with this show. It was, I think it was one of the original actors of the Goonies, if I'm not mistaken. And he has a show with, like these virtual reunions. So in times of social distancing, bringing people together, something like that. The beginning is a little bit boring, and it just goes on and on about his show. And then he starts to bring in all the actors of the original Lord of the Rings movies, and everyone is there. They're all there. They even bring in Peter Jackson and Philippa Boyens, who both wrote, of course, the script for the trilogy. And it is just as epic and good and funny and heartwarming as you would wish for. It's unbelievable to see that after all these years, this is still a family. These people are so, I don't know, there's so much chemistry between these actors. It's unbelievable. And there are some moments where they recount stories. A lot of the stuff that you also find in the director's commentaries, but of course not everyone has seen those. There was also some new stuff. It is hilarious, heartwarming, and very nostalgic. I'm watching these people, and this is like, I don't know, how long ago was this trilogy? 20 years ago or something like that? It feels like an eternity ago, and yet they are all still there, and they all feel as if tomorrow they could go on another adventure. I so wish that there was a way to bring these actors back one more time. And maybe that is just because we've been so pre-programmed with sequels and prequels and reboots, and maybe a good thing is just that. It's a good thing. Leave it for what it is. Don't ever try to do like a reboot of Back to the Future, for instance. How can you ever contemplate doing that? Even relaunching Ghostbusters with the all-female cast turned out to be a disaster. And the only thing that you can hope for is that the sequel, which is also postponed because of Corona, will be, honoring the legacy of that franchise. And so, but we all know that there is no sequel to The Lord of the Rings because all the characters go to other places. Well, maybe Aragorn. You could do a series about Aragorn because he's going to live on for quite a while. But something tells me that Viggo Mortensen is not going to reprise his role anytime soon. Nor would probably the Tolkien estate allow. Well, actually, I'm not so sure about that anymore, since Christopher Tolkien is no longer there, and they did sell the rights to Amazon for like a big Second Age series. Who knows? But probably with other actors. But anyway, if you love the Lord of the Rings trilogy, go watch it. It's fantastic. It makes me love these characters, these actors. It makes me love Peter Jackson, Philippa Boyens even more for what they did. It is still one of the best fantasy series ever made. And when I say series, I mean trilogy of movies. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. Speaking of, Star Wars. We need to talk Star Wars. I'll talk a little bit more about Star Wars in my other show, Father Roderick to the Max, which is available exclusively to my patrons. So if you want to get access to that show, go to patreon.com/Father Roderick and sign up to become a patron. Little ad here. But as you know, in my homilies during Mass for Geeks, I use a lot of Star Wars references. And I can't help myself. I grew up with Star Wars and with the gospel. So those two always mix well in my own world. I had an idea. So we've been airing, and I talk about this in my other show, The Walk, which is available for free for everyone on Tridio.com and also soon on FatherRoderick.com. That website is launching, or actually I think it's already in the air. So if you want to get a sneak peek, we're still working on it, but it's already live. Just go to FatherRoderick.com. On The Walk, I talk about an idea that I had for the Mass for Geeks. We've been celebrating Mass at 7 o'clock in the evening on Sunday. Turns out that is not the best time for the United States. I got a lot of North American people on YouTube watching. And, for New York, in Boston, it is lunchtime. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Usually people have already gone to church, and so they go on with their day. So I've decided to move it forward in time and start at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I'm going to follow it up with digital pizza. This is an idea that I took from my parish mass in Dutch, where we always gather around a digital cup of coffee with all the people that are watching online. We invite them to, get their own cup of coffee, and then we just talk. We just hang out, very much like I do during a podcast or when I'm doing a live stream. So I hang out, we answer questions, we interact with the audience, and people love it. And I was thinking, I can do that for the Mass for Geeks as well. But I want to do it, of course, not with coffee. I want to do it with pizza. And just to have a weekly pizza party. And another idea that I had is I may as well invite someone and talk about the same geeky topics that I do during my homily, but then really go in depth and do a themed talk every week. Maybe not always me, but I can definitely find speakers that can, link together the world of geeks and the world of faith. And so that is what I've been planning. Starting this month with Digital Pizza after Mass for Geeks, and I'm going in depth about Star Wars. This is something that I wanted to do for a long time, just couldn't find the platform to do it. I'm going to analyze the movies, starting with the prequels, or maybe I'll start with the original trilogy, just the order in which I've gotten to know the movies as a child. We'll go to the prequels then, and then to the sequels, and maybe in the fourth week, I'll go to the series, the TV series, like Clone Wars. And I'm really going to take, like an hour to talk about Star Wars while having, a slice of pizza and also interacting with the audience. If that is your cup of tea, if you would be interested in that, make sure to tune in, to subscribe, of course, to the YouTube channel so you get notified, and to tune in this upcoming Sunday. What date would that be? Today is the 5th, so that would be 6, 7. The 7th of June, 5 o'clock Central European Time. That is 11 o'clock Eastern Time, and I think it's 8 o'clock on the West Coast. So if you live in LA or San Francisco, you got to wake up a little bit earlier. But you could also maybe go to Mass in your own parish and then join us for Digital Pizza. It's up to you. That's the advantage of these digital streams. You can even watch Mass while you're still in bed. I am not going to judge you for that. But anyway, good times. And I'm really looking forward to expanding that concept and, have these themed months. So this June is going to be Star Wars month, and then maybe I'll let you vote on what to do next. I'd love to do Harry Potter and go in depth on that, or Star Trek. Why not? Lord of the Rings, Tolkien. There are so many superheroes, so much to explore, so many interesting people to invite for those digital pizza moments. Let me know what you think. As always, I welcome your comments.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Just plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
All right, technology. I placed my telescope here in the room because I don't really have that much high tech in here. Although, and I'm talking about my virtual podcast studio, I do have my Nintendo Switch, which is a wonderful piece of technology. I'll talk a little bit more about my recent Switch experiences in Father Roderick to the Max. I've got a very old-fashioned, dial-up telephone here. And, I've got a flat screen TV. There's nothing too exciting about that. But today I want to talk about something that I unfortunately cannot show you in the virtual world of Animal Crossing, and that is my new droid. And I have it right here next to me on my real table, and it is another Sphero. I already owned the BB-8 Sphero droid. Sphero is a small company, or it used to be a small company, and they made these remote-controlled droids. First, it was just a little ball, and then they tapped into the Star Wars franchise, created a remote-controlled BB-8 that was also seemingly quite intelligent and react to things happening around it. And they also created, more recently, an R2-D2 unit, and it is fabulous. I was so impressed. I mean, I loved BB-8, but R2-D2 still is, has a special place in my heart. That's the droid that I grew up with. And R2-D2 in its Sphero incarnation is just as spiffy and opinionated as the R2-D2 that we know from the movies. And you know what the funny thing is? They actually can work together. If you hook them up to the same app, you can use I think it's Bluetooth. they will interact with each other. You can even watch Star Wars and have these two on your desk, and they will actually react to scenes in the movie. I think the app uses audio recognition to determine where you are in the movie and what the droid should do. And I can't wait to do that. I mean, watching Star Wars together with my favorite droid, R2-D2. And it's not just the software that is impressive, but also the hardware. You may have seen R2-D2 in my most recent Geek Mass homily, where he was actually on the pulpit. And I was constantly afraid that he would fall off the thing of the ambo. But fortunately, there is someone at the door. Who could that be? I'm going to open the door real quick. Hold on. I'll be back in a second. Let me see. Right. Sorry about that. That took a while. My avatar didn't answer the door in Animal Crossing. This is a bit of a confused person, and he's been roaming around the house lately. He's also entered the church just this past weekend when we were streaming, and he's definitely a little bit lost and confused. And so he was just standing there, and he said, I was just in your garden. And I was like, well, that is private property. You should not enter there. Yeah, but the gate was open. I was like, yeah, but it's still private terrain. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to help this guy. I mean, it's 11:15. I don't want people to be at my door, especially not if they're confused like this. So anyway, I kind of shooed him away. And he, like the other day, was on a bike behind me, and he also wanted to talk, but he didn't have anything to say. So he's definitely strange. Anyway, sorry about that. I never expected someone to interrupt my podcasting at 11:15 at night. Okay, so I was talking about just R2-D2 and how cool it was. That was all I was going to say. I was almost there. The show was almost finished, but oh well. It's just what happens. Thank you so much for listening. Coming up on Father Roderick to the Max, I will talk about my favorite childhood toast, French toast, and how I thought it was totally magical when I was a child. I'll also talk about a little detective work that I did to find the origin of certain statues and candles in St. Joseph's Church here. I'll give you my review of the Last Jedi comic book adaptation, which is glorious, I'll tell you that. I'll talk a little bit more about my Animal Crossing New Horizons experiences. We'll talk about kneeling and the reason why Catholics kneel so much in the liturgy segment, and in the VR segment, I will talk about Facebook's vision of the future, both when it comes to VR and AR. Facebook is developing some very, very interesting and maybe also scary technology. If you want to listen to that, make sure you are a patron over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. And I will see you next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And see you soon. Take care now. All right, that wraps it up. Okay, this was harder than I thought, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your patience in the chat room. Sorry for me not replying or reacting. I always have a hard time when I'm podcasting to also read the notes. So usually after I'm done, I'll get back to the chat and I can read what you guys have written. So I immediately noticed that it's pretty hard to be entertaining when you're in such a small room. And even though the room is nice and cozy, what can I do other than just walk around a little bit, sit on chair number 1 and jump off again and sit on chair number 2? Or actually, I'm just jumping on chairs is pretty hard in this game. I'll just sit here. Come on. There you go. Sit in my rocking chair. So, yeah, I think in order to make this more entertaining, I definitely need to have guests. This is not very good for solo presentation, I think. But anyway, it's an experiment, nothing with that. So I just want to go back to the comment section. Rick says, this is crazy awesome. Lauren says, on your game screen, it's 2:23 p.m. In Belgium, it's almost 10:30. That's correct. I have my time in the game set to Denver time. Nico says, greetings from Germany. Guten Abend. And Sam says, great way to end the 36th trip around the sun. Listening to Father Roderick is always a blessing. Oh, it's your birthday. Very good. Congrats. Space Force has potential. Do you play Doom? I get that question a lot. No, I don't play Doom. I've played the original Doom, but wasn't really my type of game. Don't forget about Monkey. That's also about Space Force. We've got our Scottish visitor again. Screen name is Scotland Tales of the Motherland. Well, I don't know your real name, but hello. Thanks for joining. Dakota wants to join me on the island. Of course, that will be possible in the near future, but I close my island. Otherwise, I'm going to be interrupted all the time by visitors. Lamb says, thoughts on Tenet? Tenet. I'm not sure what that's referring to, Lamb. Let's see. Joey Beans. Anyone here have a good grilled cheese recipe? Okay. It's kind of random. Maybe because I talked about the French toast. Marguerite is there. Hello there. And Tsar Nicholas talks about Lord of the Rings. Samuel says, 5 p.m. is not a good time for me. I hope I can still moderate and attend. The masses mean a lot to me. Yeah, that's kind of the trade-off. It's not everyone is available. Although for, I think most of my audience, also the people here in the parish, 5 o'clock, it's usually when they wrap up their Sundays. Of course, the advantage is that you can always watch it after the fact. It's not as fun as live, but it is what a lot of people do. They just go back and then they check out the homily, for instance. All right, I'm so proud of this room. I like it. It's very simple, very small, but this is how I would like to have my rooms to look like. I'm just gonna quickly give you a teaser. This is just a little something because of your patience. I'm just going to show you a little bit of the rest of the house. It's unfinished. This hallway is kind of boring, but I do have a fully functional kitchen, which I will use for Father Roderick to the max probably. And here we are. How about that? It's got a toaster. It's got a functioning microwave, as you can see. It even makes the proper sounds. I can make toast. There we go. And I can make an Italian cup of coffee. Let's do that. Always good to make some coffee. There you go. I have a fridge. I've got a blender. So I got full breakfast capabilities here. So I'm going to turn off all this stuff. Otherwise, this will continue. Oh, let me turn off the gas. Don't want to leave that unattended. And then I have my private table where I can sit. If only in real life I had a kitchen like that. I like it. It's near the window, so I can sit there in the morning, have the sun shine through the window, get my smoothie, and here I can make cakes. I can blend the ingredients and, Here's a freezer. Well, that's about it. But I kind of like it. And then I'll just quickly show you my virtual bedroom. And I'll leave the other 2 rooms, which are the rooms that I'm most proud of. I'll leave them for the next time that we meet here in Animal Crossing. But I'm very proud of what I created in the attic. So this is my bedroom. Very simple, bit hobbity, but yeah, kind of works. Not unsimilar to my real bedroom, actually. All right, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. It is time for me to go to bed. It is late, but I enjoyed hanging out with you. So take care, and I will see you next time. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it if you can, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I'll be back for more. Have a wonderful evening, and God bless.